She told my boss. I have to explain things to him 3-4 times. I just smiled. The next morning I took my router, my server, and my name off everything. She realized her self-made business was actually my Wi-Fi password when her entire client database vanished. I, 28 male, was with Qley, 26 female, for 2 years, and we'd been living together for 1. Last Saturday was my investment firm's annual awards gala. It was a black tie affair at a ridiculously expensive hotel with major clients and the company's top brass all in attendance. My boss, Mr. Harrison, had been adamant that I bring Qley. He'd met her once and was taken by her, saying she had a vibrant energy. The man had no idea what kind of energy vortex he was inviting into the room. The night started off perfectly. Qley looked like she'd stepped off a magazine cover, effortlessly charming everyone. She was a visionary artist. You see, her whole life was an aesthetic. She had this incredible ability to make people feel like they were the only person in the room, a skill I now realize is less about connection and more about high-level data mining for weaknesses. Things took a turn when we sat for dinner. Mr. Harrison got up to give a speech and started talking about the new predictive market model I had spent the last 6 months developing. Leo here, he said, gesturing to me with a champagne flute, basically saved our 4th quarter. The framework he built is nothing short of genius. Our biggest hedge fund client is already calling it the crystal ball. Qley let out a tinkling little laugh. The kind that sounds like wind chimes but carries the subtle threat of a guillotine. Oh, Mr. Harrison, you're far too generous, she said, her voice carrying across the silent table. I'm sure it was a group effort. Besides, I had to help him visualize the data flow at home. You know how he gets stuck in the weeds with all those numbers. The air at the table went from celebratory to morgue-like in 0.5 seconds. Mr. Harrison's smile twitched. She wasn't done. I mean, bless his heart, he's brilliant, but he can be so linear. I had to create a whole series of watercolor sketches to help him see the emotional narrative of the stock market. But that's what partners are for, right? We have to fill in each other's gaps. You can't frame the muse, after all. My colleague David, a poor bastard who just wanted to eat his sea bass in peace, tried to change the subject. But Qley was on a roll, basking in the glow of what she perceived as a power move. Like the other day, he was trying to explain it to me and I just had to stop him and say, "Honey, think of it like color theory." It just clicked for him after that. Sometimes I feel more like his creative director than his girlfriend. She patted my hand like I was a golden retriever who had successfully learned to sit. What could I do? Exploding would have been career suicide. So I just laughed. A tight, painful sound. Guess I'm lucky to have such a visionary teacher. I said the words, tasting like acid. The rest of the dinner was an exercise in clenching every muscle in my body. She kept dropping little bombs. How she had to realign the feng shui of my home office for better productivity. How she basically channeled the core concepts for my presentations. All lies, of course. My home office looks like a NASA control room and the only thing she channels is the Domino's pizza tracker. The drive home was silent. She, however, was glowing. I think that went so well, she said, breaking the quiet. Mr. Harrison really seemed to respect that I'm so involved in your process. Definitely memorable, I agreed, my voice flat. She went to bed happy. I stayed up all night, not with anger but with the cold crystalline clarity of a man who had just been given an overdue diagnosis. You see, what Qley didn't understand was that her entire visionary artist persona was built on my financial and technical infrastructure. Her successful online art store. It ran on a premium e-commerce platform I paid for and managed. Her high-end custom-built PC for her digital art and video editing. I designed and paid for it. The absurdly expensive Adobe Creative Cloud and other specialized software subscriptions. My credit card. Her most lucrative clients, the wealthy patrons who bought her 50-inch canvases of pastel-colored blobs that looked like a unicorn, had a panic attack. They were all my firm's clients, men I had personally introduced her to at events just like this one. On Sunday morning she left for her 9 intuitive movement and sound bath class. At 9:15 I was packing. By noon, my friend Mark was helping me move everything I owned into his spare bedroom. Dude, she treats you like a walking ATM with a decent personality. He'd said months ago. Mark is a very smart man. I left a note on the gleaming white kitchen island. Qley, I may not be able to visualize the emotional narrative of the stock market, but I'm smart enough to see this is over. Your keys are on the counter. The lease is in your name just like you insisted. Best of luck. Leo. Thank God she'd been so adamant about that for her creative and financial autonomy. Then came the digital extraction. I changed every single one of my passwords. I logged into her e-commerce site and transferred the domain ownership to myself and took the site offline. I canceled my credit card, the one she was an authorized user on. I remotely wiped the custom PC I'd built her, the one she needed for her work, and arranged for it to be picked up. I didn't touch a single one of her paintbrushes or crystals. I just took back what was mine. My phone started melting down around 3 p. 32 missed calls. 57 texts. They started with confusion, hey, my site is down. Weird. Then escalated to irritation, can you fix this? I have orders to ship. And finally detonated into full-blown rage, Leo, what did you do? This isn't funny. We need to talk. Her final text before I blocked her number made me laugh out loud. How am I supposed to run my business without the design software? You are so ungrateful. Apparently, being grateful for public humiliation has been reclassified as a basic life skill. Blocked. I figured that was that. Oh, what a sweet, naive fool I was. Update 1. Monday morning at the office was illuminating. Mr. Harrison pulled me into his office before I could even get my coffee. Leo. He started looking genuinely apologetic. About Saturday night. I am so sorry. Sir, you have nothing to apologize for. I'm the one who's sorry if my personal drama made things uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. He laughed, a real booming laugh this time. Leo the First was furious. On your behalf. Who does she think she is? You developed that model from scratch. Hell, you had to explain it to me, the CEO, 4 times before I fully grasped the math. The idea that she helped you with color theory is the most insulting thing I've heard all year. It turns out nobody at the table had bought her performance for a second. They saw it for what it was. A desperate, embarrassing attempt to steal my spotlight. The real fun began on Tuesday. I got an email to my work address. The subject line was urgent. Creative pipeline emergency. The mental gymnastics required to frame "you took your stuff back" as a creative pipeline emergency could qualify for the delusional Olympics. She had discovered the full extent of the situation. Her online store was gone. The software she relied on was deactivated. The wealthy clients I had introduced her to weren't answering her calls, probably because their first point of contact was, well, me. Her email demanded I reinstate her digital infrastructure immediately, or she would be forced to seek damages for professional and artistic sabotage. I didn't respond. It's not my circus, and those are definitely not my monkeys. Which led to Wednesday. The receptionist called my desk. Leo, there's a Ms. Qley here in the lobby. She says she needs to speak with you about an urgent asset management issue. The sheer audacity. I went down to the lobby, a marble and glass cathedral of finance, to find Qley standing there with her laptop open, talking loudly on her phone about hostile asset seizure and suppression of artistic expression. The poor security guard looked like he was trying to reason with a ghost. There you are. She snapped when she saw me. I have a commission deadline in 2 hours and my entire system is down. This is completely unprofessional. That sounds like a you problem. I said, keeping my voice low and calm. Don't be so petty, Leo. Just fix it and we can talk about us later. You can't frame the muse, you know that. There is no us, Qley. And I'm not your IT department. She actually stomped her foot. A 26-year-old woman in designer boots stomped her foot in the lobby of a multi-billion-dollar investment firm. You know, my entire business runs on that software. It's all connected. You should have thought about that before you tried to paint me as an idiot in front of my boss to fuel your ego. I was done. I was building your reputation. She shrieked. I was making you seem more collaborative and less like a robot." The security guard, a hero named Gus, stepped in. "Sir, should we escort her out?" "Please, Gus. That would be lovely." The things she screamed as Gus led her away were not very zen. Something about how I owed her, how I was destroying a woman's livelihood, and how I'd regret caging a free spirit. The hypocrisy was so thick you could cut it with a palette knife. Thursday she changed tactics. I got a call from my mom. Qley had contacted her, weaving a tale of woe about how I'd had a sudden mental breakdown, abandoned her without warning, and left her completely unable to work or pay her bills. My mom's response was perfect. "Good for him," she said. "That girl was a nightmare. Did he finally come to his senses?" Turns out my family couldn't stand her. They had been polite for my sake, but they saw the performative, user-friendly narcissism I was too blind to see. She'd always told me my family was intimidated by her powerful feminine energy. Turns out they just thought she was an asshole. You can't frame the muse, but apparently you can try to manipulate its mother. She didn't stop there. She contacted my sister, who laughed and hung up. My best friend Mark, who told her to lose his number. My ex-girlfriend from 3 years ago, who then texted me, "Dude, what is wrong with your ex? She just messaged me asking if you had a history of financial abuse." Psycho. Friday she escalated again. I received a formal-looking letter via email. It wasn't from a real lawyer, she couldn't afford one now, but it was formatted to look like one. It was a demand for restoration of creative assets and compensation. She listed her demands. 1. Immediate restoration of her e-commerce platform. 2. Payment for lost business $50,000. 3. Compensation for stifled creative potential and emotional distress. Another $25,000. And the kicker: a written apology for professional sabotage. She claimed we had a verbal partnership where I provided technical and financial support in exchange for her creative mentorship. I forwarded it to my friend, who is a lawyer. He called me back after he finished laughing, which took about 5 minutes. She wants you to pay her $75,000 because you stopped giving her free stuff after she publicly humiliated you. That's not just bold, Leo. That's a masterpiece of delusion. The weekend was quiet. Too quiet. On Monday morning I found out why. She had decided to go nuclear. Update 2. So the nuclear option. Qley, the woman for whom you can't frame the muse, decided the best way to solve her problems was to try and burn my entire career to the ground. She launched a full-scale social media campaign. We're talking dramatic black and white photos of her looking forlornly at a blank canvas with long captions about the struggles of being a female artist in a world run by financial brutes who seek to commodify and control the creative spirit. She never used my name, but the implications were crystal clear. She was the victim and I was the abusive, controlling monster who had pulled the plug on her dreams because I couldn't handle her success. The comments were a cesspool. A few of her artsy friends chimed in with, "So proud of your strength. And your voice will not be silenced." Most people, however, seemed to smell the BS. Still, it was unnerving. Then she made her fatal mistake. Remember those wealthy clients I introduced her to? The ones who were my firm's clients. She emailed every single one of them. She sent them a link to her Instagram sob story and a personal note warning them about my unstable and vindictive nature and my tendency to sabotage business partners. One of those clients is a man named Arthur Vance, a major art collector who basically got me my job at the firm. He's my mentor. On Monday afternoon he forwarded me her email with a single line. "This your ex? Call me." I called him, my stomach in knots. He picked up laughing. A deep, hearty laugh. "Kid," he said, "she sent this garbage to a dozen people. You know what they all have in common. They're your connections, not hers. They trust your financial advice. They don't trust the visionary artist, who just tried to professionally assassinate you via email." He was right. By the end of the day I had messages from every single person she'd contacted. They were all variations of, "Is she okay? This is incredibly unprofessional. Thanks for the warning about her. We're terminating our commissions with her immediately." In an attempt to destroy my reputation, she had torched her own, salting the earth behind her. The irony was so delicious I could have bottled it and sold it as a gourmet sauce. Edit. A lot of people are asking why I paid for everything. It was a gradual thing. It started with, can you cover the software this month? You can't frame the muse on a budget. Then it was the PC because her old one was stifling her creative flow. The e-commerce site was to help her get her vision out there. She was a master at making her problems sound like our shared opportunities. Lesson learned. But the best part came on Tuesday. Remember how she insisted the apartment lease be in her name only? For her creative autonomy and to build her own rental history. Yeah, about that. I got a text from an unknown number. It was her best friend Sienna. Leo, are you seriously going to let her get evicted? That's so cruel. Evicted. Turns out Qley hadn't paid rent in 2 months. She had been taking the money I gave her for my half in cash because she said it was more energetic and she was uncomfortable with digital transactions for our shared living space and spending it on God knows what. Probably more designer boots and aura cleansing spa days. Without my half, she couldn't cover the rent. Without her business income, which had just evaporated thanks to her little email campaign, she was completely broke. Sienna, who I think was getting tired of the drama, sent me screenshots of their texts. Qley was convinced she could legally force me to pay the back rent because I had broken our domestic partnership agreement. An agreement that never existed. I have texts from her which I had saved where she explicitly states, I need the lease in my name alone, Leo. It's important for my independence. You can't frame the muse if it feels trapped in someone else's legal structure. The math on that logic is just perfect. Wednesday brought another visit to my office. This time it wasn't Qley. It was her mother, Brenda. A woman who thinks her daughter's pastel blobs are the second coming of Monet. She marched up to reception demanding to speak to the man who ruined her daughter's life. I agreed to meet her in the lobby. Public place cameras everywhere. Smart. How could you do this to my daughter? She demanded, her voice trembling with manufactured outrage. Do what exactly? Brenda. Leave her homeless. Destroy her business. She's having panic attacks. She publicly humiliated me in front of my boss and clients. I left. Everything that happened after that is a direct consequence of her own actions. She was trying to help you. Brenda insisted. Make you seem more human. By calling me a simpleton who needs watercolors to understand his own job. She never said that. She fired back. I pulled out my phone. My colleague David hadn't just wanted to eat his sea bass in peace, he'd also been tasked with getting a short video of Mr. Harrison's speech for the company's internal newsletter. He had caught Qley's entire performance in crystal clear audio. I played it for Brenda. Her face went through the 5 stages of grief in about 15 seconds. Well, she didn't mean it like that. She stammered. How else could he had to explain it to him like he was a child, possibly mean? You can't frame the muse, Brenda. But you also can't reframe objective reality. She tried another angle. She's going to be on the street. You have to help her. No, I don't. She wanted that lease in her name. She's a strong, independent artist who doesn't need a man. Remember. Her words, not mine. But she needs you. She should have thought of that before she treated me like her personal bank and village idiot. Brenda left muttering something about fragile male egos and how I didn't appreciate a truly creative soul. Last night around 11 p. I got one final desperate text from another unknown number. Hey man, this is Tyler from Qley's building. She gave me your number, says you have a spare key. She's locked out and the landlord won't help 'cause of the eviction notice. Can you swing by? Nice try. I never had a spare key. Because you can't frame the muse and you also can't give a key to a guy you don't trust not to disrupt your energy flow. I didn't respond. This morning I checked her Instagram. She'd posted a new story. A picture of a single sad-looking suitcase. The caption. Sometimes you have to shed everything to find your true self. Rebirth. Rebirth apparently. Looks a lot like getting evicted. Final update. This is probably the last time I'll update this saga because the story has reached its karmic inevitable and frankly hilarious conclusion. After the rebirth suitcase post, Qley's victimhood narrative went into overdrive. She created a blog. The title: Unframed. My story of artistic suppression and economic abuse. In it, she painted a masterpiece of delusion. She claimed I had deliberately trapped her by making her business dependent on my technical infrastructure. That I had isolated her from her professional contacts, the ones I introduced her to. That I had gaslit her into believing she couldn't succeed on her own. And that I had strategically abandoned her at the most vulnerable time to cause maximum damage. A few people in the comments bought it, but then she made a mistake that was so monumentally stupid it belongs in a museum. She decided to post evidence. She uploaded screenshots of our text conversations to prove my controlling behavior. Screenshots where she insisted the lease be in her name only. Screenshots where she begged me to introduce her to my clients. Screenshots where she demanded I pay for her expensive software because you can't frame the muse without the right tools, Leo. It's for us. She even included a text where she told me not to come to one of her gallery shows because my corporate energy would clash with the artistic vibes. She thought these proved her point. Instead, she had just published a detailed confession of her own entitlement and manipulation. Arthur Vance, my mentor and the collector she'd tried to turn against me, saw the blog. He called me howling with laughter. She really posted the receipts. Against herself. This is unbelievable. But he wasn't just laughing. Arthur is on the board of a major arts council. He commented on her blog post. It was a thing of beauty. He professionally, surgically, and publicly dismantled every single one of her claims using her own evidence against her. He ended his comment with, "Ms. Qley, you have publicly admitted to exploiting your partner's resources while demeaning his intelligence. You've demonstrated a pattern of financial manipulation while claiming to be the victim. I would recommend you remove this defamatory content before actual legal consequences, which you seem to be confused about, find their way to your door." The blog went private within an hour and then disappeared entirely. But Qley had one last play. The Hail Mary of audacity. She applied for a job. At my company. For a senior marketing position. And she listed me as a professional reference. The head of HR called me sounding utterly bewildered. "Leo, did you agree to be a reference for a Ms. Qley who I believe you had escorted from our lobby a few weeks ago?" I absolutely did not. It gets better. She hadn't just listed me. She claimed in her cover letter that we had collaborated on several successful cross-disciplinary projects and that I could attest to her strategic thinking and ability to bridge the gap between quantitative analysis and creative marketing. The sheer, unmitigated gall. HR's response was essentially a very polite hell no. She had apparently done this at several other firms in the city using my colleagues' names as well. She had effectively blacklisted herself from the entire corporate world in our city in less than a month. The eviction resolved itself. She tried to fight it in court, claiming hardship due to economic sabotage. The judge was not impressed, especially when the landlord's lawyer pointed out that she hadn't paid rent in 3 months, not 2. Her financial mismanagement predated our breakup. She'd been pocketing my money the whole time. Last I heard, she'd moved back in with her parents. Her Facebook status now reads, "Taking time to heal and rediscover my authentic self after escaping a profoundly toxic situation. Learning to trust again is the hardest part." Her mom commented, "So proud of your resilience, my brave girl." My mom saw it and commented, "Resilience from what? Taking responsibility." Brenda blocked my mom. My mom thinks it's the funniest thing that has ever happened. You can't frame the muse, but you can definitely get it blocked on Facebook. And the best part. Last week Mr. Harrison called me into his office. That predictive model I built. It performed so well they created a new position for me. Head of Quantitative Strategy. It came with an office with a view and a mid-6-figure bonus that just hit my account. At the company-wide meeting announcing it, Mr. Harrison made a point of saying, "This promotion is 100% merit-based. Leo earned this with his own intelligence and hard work. No watercolors were involved in this process." The room erupted in laughter. It was the best professional moment of my life. So now I'm living with Mark but looking for my own place. Veronica is living with her parents with no business, no references, and a reputation as the artist who tried to cancel her ex and deleted her own career instead. She still occasionally tries to contact me. The last text from another new number was about how I owed her for the emotional labor of our relationship. I just screenshot save. And don't respond. My lawyer friend says I have enough for a harassment order, but honestly she's not worth the paperwork. She is a living, breathing consequence of her own actions. She believed her own hype. She really thought you can't frame the muse. Turns out you can. You just have to let it frame itself. Peace out.